Hey guys, welcome to Living with Gravity. Today we have Miles Perkin. Miles Perkin is, head of brand management Triumph. Triumph, as you all know, is an illustrious UK motorcycle brand. Maybe Miles, you want to talk about yourself a bit, and then we can start with question and answer session.
Sure. Okay. Well, hello. It's nice to speak, and it's lovely for me always to talk about Triumph motorcycles. As you said, I'm head of brand management. I've been working at Triumph Motorcycles for many years, in a role that I think is one of the most rewarding and exciting jobs I've ever had. I'm responsible for our story and how we launch and bring our new motorcycles into the world. Um, and Triumph has got an incredible history, but also very prolific and very proactive activity over the last 10 years. And my time in the last 10 years have been focused on helping Triumph step into what we would believe is a more prominent position in the motorcycle world, having started and been there from the beginning. But of course, the world changes constantly, and there's always an opportunity to grow. So yeah, that's my job. I mean, there's a little bit of marketing, but there's an awful lot of riding motorcycles and talking to our customers, which I very much enjoy.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Miles was responsible to, inaugurate the newly launched Pony Fleet, which I saw. I think it was in last week, which I saw him unveiling the new Pony Fleet that just arrived.
Yes.
Yeah. So I start throwing you questions, Miles. So number one, how do you define Triumph motorcycle in one word? If you want to define it in one word, what will you say?
Wow. Oh, there's so many, but British would come to mind.
Yeah.
British in all the meanings that I would hope British carries that are positive. So character, flair, creativity, design, culture, passion, and originality. So I've given you lots of different words there, but for me, I think Triumph has a Britishness running through it, which evokes all of those great things.
Fantastic. And what do you ride yourself, Miles? What is the one bike that you feel is good and you ride yourself?
So the bike that's in my garage currently is a Scrambler, Triumph Scrambler 1200 XE, which is the top of the range Scrambler. I'm just under 6 foot tall, and my riding, I live in the countryside, so I do get a bit of an opportunity to do a little bit of green laning, as well as the need to drive up and down the UK a lot. And the bike's got quite good long legs for sort of adventure touring. And but no, I like the British twins, that parallel twin torque. But I do get to ride all of our motorcycles, and I've had long-term loans. And I mean, this would probably be my 20th or 30th even bike that I've owned. So yeah, a Scrambler is my current flavor.
Fantastic. And extending to the second question, are there any roads that you feel good or exceptional when you start riding your bike?
Yeah,
Any favorite roads?
my favorite roads there. I've got a sort of a list of the cliches for anyone who's into their bikes, who gets the opportunity to ride some of the bigger well-known roads like the Ronda Road, or the some of the Austrian passes, or on the south of France through Nice. So I'm very lucky over the years to have gone on almost all of the things you could consider those sort of big name roads. I think my favorite roads are mountains. Um, the kind of the up and the down and the
The
twistiness of the
career
roads.
twist, yeah.
I love. I don't consider myself a very fast rider. Quite often I get left at the back. All the press go off, disappear into the distance, and I'm left sort of trailing behind. But um, yeah, my favourite roads would be that. If I had to pick one, it's the in the UK. It's the main non-motorway road that links London to the south. It's called the A303, and my house is on the A3. I was near the A303, so that's my favourite road because it's the road to home.
Great. And this one might be a little bit, secret question for you. I would ask you, like, what are the current projects which Triumph is working on? I mean, it's a bit of a secret question, so
Yes. Well, I won't give away any secrets.
yeah,
But if for the people who are listening to this or watching this that know Triumph, you would know us, I think, of being pretty prolific. For the last 8 years, I think there's not been a year gone by where we haven't launched at least 6 or 7 updates to our motorcycles, and in there will always be 1 or 2 really new motorcycles. So I'll tease you with that since Christmas, with the Bonneville family launch, we launched um, 7 new variants.
right,
I've got 4 more to launch
right,
in the next month. We've launched a new Speed Triple and a new Trident, and there are more stories to come with other new bikes. And of course, one of those still to come will be our partnership with Bajaj, of course, with smaller capacity motorcycles. So I could reel off the names of maybe another 6 or 7 quite big stories that we're working on at the moment, but I'll hold those closer to the chest for the time being.
absolutely. Um, So, as per you, I mean, you coming on board and from in Triumph, what do you feel is one of the most challenging projects that has been executed by Triumph in terms of motorcycle building or developing? What would you feel, or in terms of the
Yeah.
greatest challenge that you'd face?
Okay. So I think that the biggest challenge, um, it it's a mixture of challenge and pleasure all the time, of course, to
Right.
do things to the best of their opportunity. So the quality, the timing, the impact. Anyone who works for a brand that they love or a business or an organization that they love wants to do their best. And the challenge comes in achieving that in new landscapes for me.
Yeah.
So when we're working according to the way we always work, the challenge is in making it better or changing that dynamic. But entering into completely new landscapes, I think has the most amount of challenge in it. And in recent times, I think probably one of the most exciting and challenging was Triumph returning to the racing paddock
Yeah.
on a global scale with the
Scale.
Moto 2 program with Dorna, working with Dorna in secret over a period of a couple of years, preparing to become the engine supplier and sole platform for the Dorna Moto 2 World Championship, and then extending that as that became as successful as we wanted or hoped it would be into what is now becoming further racing programs. So there's a lot of challenge there in almost a new language to speak, a new dynamic, a new customer base, but so exciting for the brand.
Right. And uh, your collaboration with Bajaj has provided a specific impetus to the motorcycle world. What and again, this is a bit secret question. What and when do you see from this collaboration, Miles?
With this one, I think I'm afraid I'm going to have to um, hold my answer to pretty much what Rajiv Bajaj shared at the
Oh,
end of last year. So it's a very exciting partnership.
right,
This is a non-equity alliance to develop a variety of new middleweight bikes between 200 and 700 cc. And Bajaj, as you know, will also take over our distribution in India for the future. Now, due to COVID, the bikes are not likely now to come into the market until 2023.
right,
Um, and that, in a way, is all I can say for the time being. I can tell you, though, that um, they, the relationship and what I've seen of the outcome of it is very exciting. This feels to me, I'm working with the team who are connected
right,
on this project. It very much feels like one team. The whole endeavor is moving at a very great pace. So I have seen the beginnings of the fruits of this labor, and it's very exciting. But in terms of any other announcements or what we can share, there's nothing at the moment that we're able to sort of bring into the public domain, apart from, like I say, that the bikes will be delayed a little until 2023, which is not, I don't think it's a very big delay over what was originally
Right.
talked about. But things are moving on exactly as we expected, which is in a very good way. So great outcome is coming. I think people are going to be very excited and pleased with what they see.
Right. Uh, Moving on to the next, Miles, Triumph has an e-bike called as e-tracker. Extending to the e-bike, do we see uh, electric motorcycles from Triumph in future? Is that the plan? Like,
I would say that all you, the changing world of legislation and also what customers want and need will drive ultimately electric motorcycles in the future. The question as to when and in what way will Triumph play a part in this, this is still very much under consideration and discussion. So I think the answer is that every motorcycle, one point in the future, at some point in the future, um, every manufacturer I think will end up having and will need to have an electric offer, whether it's completely electric or other forms of powertrain maybe in development. But that's not giving secrets away. I'm just saying that
right.
we know it's coming. We are under consideration. We have a project that we're working in partnership with quite a few different partners in the UK, with Williams Advanced Engineering, IPT, Powertrain, and WMG, the University at the University of Warwick. We have a project called TE1, Triumph Electric One, which is exploring future innovation. It isn't literally about creating a motorcycle at this point. It's pretty much the beginnings of the innovation and development thinking. So it'll come, but I can't tell you when or how just for the time being.
Sure, sure. I think we would look forward from Triumph uh, uh, to see one of the electric motorcycles, definitely from Triumph. Uh, Daytona 765, one of the most important weapon in Triumph's arsenal. Do we see sometime in future getting back, or like it's just a limited edition for Triumph?
Yes, no. So there's two answers to that. The first is the Daytona 765 Moto 2 limited edition is the last Daytona.
Okay,
There's definitely not going to be a full production version of that.
right,
Um, the, the the engine that's in it, of course, and the Moto 2 world that it sort of lives in, it is really centered around naked performance sports motorcycles. That's very much the center of the motorcycling world. Once upon a time, fed sports bikes pretty much dominated. This isn't the landscape. So there isn't really a customer world to the kind of sales numbers that can support the kind of investment to continue to make wonderful evolution. So, but there is in the naked sports bikes. So the 765 Street Triple, for me, that's the modern version of what that once upon a time would have been a fed sports bike. The Speed Triple that we just launched, the RS, that's an absolute revelation. That's as close as you get, and that's a bike that's been designed to be as good on track as it is on road. So I think that the nature of the Daytona, as it stood in the past, that world isn't very much. I think the central to at least the big sales of motorcycles anymore.
right,
There are individual bikes people do like to. Obviously, there's racing continues, but I think the world for us in terms of performance motorcycles lives much more around the Street Triple and the Speed Triple. There's more to come in the future, of course, in that world. And as you may know, we're in the season ahead for the very first time in the British Supersports Championship. That's now moving on and away from the Fed Supersports bikes to naked sports bikes developed for racing. So, and that's something that we're in partnership with in the UK that I think is, if based on its success, will roll out. So, for me, it's maybe more, the answer is there's an exciting future for Triumph Racing, and there are already what you could consider today's equivalent to that Lita Plus sports bike. It exists already. It's our new Speed Triple.
Right. Again, extending to the same limited editions, wherein the custom section of Triumph, which is a Triumph factory custom, has three motorcycles under it, namely Bobber TFC, Thruxton TFC, and a Rocket 3 TFC, which now are sold out. So, any future plans do you see, Miles, where Triumph can bring this back, or again they were just a limited edition?
Well, so the answer to that is yes. There will be more TFCs in the future. When we launched the Triumph Factory Custom range,
Yeah.
this came with a promise to bring out the premium top of the range version of some of our most sort of famous and fan favorite motorcycles, but to go further than just the color trim and graphics, to offer factory customs that would have a unique level of performance, a unique level of specification as well. So when we announced the factory custom and then led out with the first three, our promise would be that we would continue to do this. So I can't tell you now what the next factory custom will be, but there will be more factory customs to come. They will be also one-offs, never to be repeated. And of course, I would hope that it will sell out to I know some of the people who bought the Rocket TFC, for instance, and the Thruxton and the Bobber. These are very desirable, and when people get their hands on those, they're quite excited to have such a unique thing. So yes, we fully intend to bring more out, but I can't announce what the next one will be just yet.
Right. Uh, uh, the next question for you, Miles, is we've seen a little difference between Tiger 850 Sport and Tiger 900, which is like around 10 PS of difference. So,
Yeah.
do you feel that's a cannibalization of product, or like these are two separate entities where or is there any kind of
Um,
yeah?
yeah, I understand the perception that you could see those and see, well, it's an interesting thing to do. I think that the best way to understand them is if you compare other motorcycle brands who have something similar, and they have something similar because there are different customer ambitions in the world. So, I
Right.
mean, no manufacturer of motorcycles should be in business unless they listen and talk to their customers. And when you look at who's buying middleweight adventure bikes, I know they're very high capacity, but we have the 1200s above them. In this world, if you compare it, for instance, with the BMW range, the BMW have a very similar thing. They have the F750 and they have the F850. Now, those engines are like our engine, it's the same engine. It has a different capacity based on its state of tune and based on the specification of the bike. Now, what our 850 Sport and 900 family represent are two, you have to excuse my dog,
Okay.
he'll bark a little bit,
That's all right. That's all right.
are, are two slightly different customer ambitions. So we understand from talking to our dealers and talking to customers around the world that some people are looking for their adventure bike to be a little less intimidating, should we say. They're not seeking out the most extreme performance, and they're looking for a price point that's more around their idea of what an adventure bike is. And I think BMW, who sell very large amounts of both 750 and 850, we could see and we can hear from talking to customers that there's an audience for a Tiger 900 that wants a slightly lower specification, better priced, and tailored model that's a little bit more of a road focused all rounder and not quite so advanced. Likewise, we know from the Tiger 900 that there's a very large audience who who their ambition is to have more performance, more specification, and to advance in terms of those things because of the type of riding that they want to do. So the simple answer is there's two slightly overlapping similar audiences. And if you look at it and you think, I don't know why they did that, I would want the 900, then you're someone who fits in the 900 bracket. But
Right.
if you're someone looking at that going, that's quite appealing, I'm a little bit more road centric, I'm not that interested in the potential for going off road, and I would benefit, and it appeals to me to have slightly lower price or a lower price, lower specification to the extent that it feels more in my control. So I don't see it as a cannibalization. I see it as providing choice when we can see there's quite a difference.
Right. Uh, the most important question, Daytona 1000, do we see it back maybe in some time in future?
Well, I'll refer you to the conversation we just had regarding the
Right.
Daytona 765.
765.
No, there are no current plans to build a Daytona 1000. Our speed triple and the very large category that is the groups of riders who are looking for that slightly more upright, road focused performance that they can put on a track is pretty much driving our development based on listening to what people want. I can understand why people would be excited by the idea of it, but sports bikes are not selling in large volumes, and there are not that many people. There are lots of people who would like the idea of it, but not potentially that many who would want to buy one. We do have a saying at Triumph, which is never say never. So never say never, but that's not because I'm hinting one's coming.
Yeah.
That's because if the world evolves and there's a market for it and there's a
Right.
large amount of people wanting it, then of course we'll listen. But for the time being, no, there isn't. The world isn't there for one.
Right. During a certain motorcycle stage, I mean, right from beginning to inception to the production, there are various stages that are involved while the motorcycle is been built. So these phases are like pre-concept, styling, scheme,
Yeah.
and design to production. What, according to you, is one of the most important phases wherein a motorcycle is takes a lot of turn per se? Is there
Yeah.
anything in your mind which says that this is one of the most important stage?
Yep. You would probably get a different answer depending on who you talk to at Triumph.
Yeah, yeah,
Of course, I work in the business, the side of the business that engages with customers.
yeah,
So rather than engineering or design,
yeah.
but from my perspective of knowing Triumph for more than a decade and being involved with a lot of the individuals who are decision makers at Triumph, I
Right,
think it would be fair to say that from my perspective, the most essential stage is the pre-concept planning phase, where the scope or the brief for what the bike needs to be is created. Because in that phase, you are taking input from what customers want, what customers say, what they need, what our dealers who understand our customers understand are the problems they face or the opportunities that are there. And that is usually the formative stage of deciding what something should be. Everything that follows, of course, is a great challenge to maintain that focus and deliver on that ambition, which I know there's an incredible amount of effort goes in. I mean, Triumph is relatively unique, certainly versus, I would say, maybe the Japanese brands, in that our engine, chassis, and styling is an integrated process within one facility, within our R&D facility in Hinckley, all in-house, complete design engineering, a fluid process where we have separate teams, but they work in an integrated, continuous cycle of relationship. As opposed to, I know that some organizations, the engine team and the chassis team are in different buildings, maybe even different places. And I think that integration and that focus allows to continuously interrogate
Yeah.
what it is you're building, to always take every opportunity for an enhancement to its completeness. So we have an ethos which is about the complete motorcycle,
Hmm.
married to a Kaizen approach of continuous evolution. So you're looking for everything to work together, so you get 1 and 1 equals 3 instead of, so you have more than the sum of its parts. But none of that can be completely exploited unless you start with a vision that represents, proper understanding of what people want, what they need, what they'll buy, married to, a creativity of innovation, of
Yeah.
thought, that you create something new.
Yeah. Uh, Miles, you are one of the most successful brands in Isles of Man TT. Not many people know that. With 21 wins in the Isles of Man TT, do we see more? We understand that this year's TT is cancelled.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but do we see more in terms of racing from Triumph in Isles of Man TT in future?
I hope so. I hope so. So certainly, if the Isle of Man races
Yeah.
would have gone ahead this year, then I know of two riders who would have been campaigning on Supersport Triumphs, but the Daytona to race there is quite old.
Yeah.
It has been out of production for a while. We look forward to future Isle of Mans, and again, I think there will be inevitably some evolution to rules and specifications as the world of super sports continues to change. So maybe sometime in the future, as with British super sports, as that's now evolved away from fully fared retail bikes like a Daytona to something that's an adaptation and tailored for track version of a naked sports bike. I think that should the evolution of the rules continue that way in the World Super Sports and potentially onto the Isle of Man, there could be a very exciting future where you'll see more Triumphs competing.
Yeah.
But I do know, even with next year, that as with last year and the year before, there were Daytonas campaigning the super sports. And it was only the year before last that Peter Hickman took another super sports title, following up on Gary Johnson. And, we got some phenomenal names, Bruce Anstey, you go back,
Absolutely.
and racing at the Isle of Man. So my answer to that is I completely am committed to hope so. But it may be reflective of the evolution of Supersport rule change that we'll see that come into pass.
Right. Uh, in future, do we see any kind of turbocharge or supercharge from Triumph? Any
Not
bike? Okay.
not not in the near future.
Okay.
We do custom supercharged bikes
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
I've been involved in projects that we've supercharged for drag racing. Um, it's it's very exciting, but of course people buy motorcycles from Triumph and every other manufacturer based on the idea they're buying something that's durable, will last, and of course introducing supercharging and turbocharging is for custom motorcycles can be challenging. In retail development, it's not that frequently done, and some of the challenges I presume lie in durability. So we look to a quality product, and I can't see those in our future for the time being.
Yeah. Uh, any chances of also? I mean, what is your idea of leaning a multi vehicle? For example, Yamaha's got an Ecane. What do you feel in terms of will has any? I mean, do you have any plans to bring something like a three wheeler or so?
Not to my knowledge. Again, never say never. Should the
Right.
world go that way and should people demand that? But again, our ambition is to deliver the perfect ride. It's our marketing strapline for the ride. The perfect ride comes with all of the things working to their best and their greatest. The convention for two wheels is something that we've evolved over decades. Our teams focus on, the sort of class leading handling and to create motorcycles that deliver that perfect ride. When you introduce major innovations, multi-wheel, etc., I mean, the straight answer is I don't think so for the time being. Never say never. But I think my personal interpretation is that there's a lot of challenges with that kind of significant innovation in regards to how many people would immediately want that kind of motorcycle and what kind of an opportunity that presents for for creating, sort of the kind of sales success that allows you to innovate and create wonderful bikes for people.
Right.
I don't necessarily see that in a leaning multi-wheel bike for Triumph.
Right. And before we moving on to racing, what kind of impact did Triumph had? I mean, during COVID, do you see Triumph had any kind of impact during COVID-19?
In racing?
No, I mean before moving to racing, before
Oh,
moving to
excuse me.
questions, yeah. Do we? I mean, did Triumph had any impact via COVID? I mean, the motorcycle market was slow. So just a question to you related to COVID. I mean, was Triumph
To
slow?
COVID.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, do excuse me. Yes, I think the motorcycle world, both the customers world, the dealers that sell them, um, maintenance that supports them, and of course manufacturing has been impacted quite considerably by COVID.
Yeah.
We're a global business. We operate in many countries around the world. We have headquarters or individual country headquarters in 12 operations. And I think every single country at one point or another has faced a lockdown, or if it hasn't had a lockdown, then there's been a restriction to people's movements, and there of course is the consequence on just a phenomenal amount of people around the world in terms of their health and their livelihoods. And unfortunately, for everyone involved, this affects everything. But it certainly has had an impact on how many people are able to ride motorbikes, how many people may buy motorbikes. We are seeing consequential, positive, and but it's a positive not from the perspective of sales so much, but more from when you can see that in difficult times people rely on their pleasures and their passions. So it is great to see that when we've been launching bikes or when we've been talking about motorcycles, the amount of people watching and listening and the kind of conversations you're having are giant numbers, large amounts of, there's lots of engagement. And I think that's a reflection of how people really rely on their passions in difficult times. And motorcycling is one of those things that, you live it. It's not a hobby like stamp collecting. It's something
Right.
that you run your life around. A lot of people do. So I'm glad to say that we've seen the rise of engagement, the rise of people watching our videos, and I would be pleased to think that potentially that's giving people pleasure. There's been a roller coaster of the
Yeah.
sales kind of model.
Definitely.
We've seen sales fall to record lows in some countries at some parts of time. But equally, we've seen some spikes in sales, which I think are reflecting that when people are getting an opportunity to go out and buy or spend their money, there are some things you can't spend your money on in some countries.
Exactly. Right.
You may not buy a house, but a motorcycle, although a very expensive purchase, is something that people can say, right, well, I'm finally going to get that motorbike. So for me, I think that the single answer is it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
We've seen up, we've seen downs.
Down. Yeah.
We've experienced that as individuals. I'm working from home. I'm going to the factory once a week. But our operation has continued worldwide continuously. We've not stopped the manufacturing facility. There have been times when it's gone down to skeleton crew. We're seeing the effect of COVID on distribution timings. We're seeing it on Retail, the opportunity for people to open and sell has been on and off and on and off, depending on where you go. But I think the most positive thing I can say is that you can see the effect of this challenge. Motorcycling is having a part to play that I think for the benefit for the fans of motorcycling.
Yeah. Lately, what changes do you observe in the motorcycle world? I believe, I mean, we believe it's getting more and more aggressive in the lower displacement motorcycles. So according to you, what changes do you feel you've been observing since last 5 years or so in the motorcycle world?
So the changes we've seen in the last 5 years are there've been certainly some shifts away from more of the sports bike race looking category
Right.
to people looking for more road orientated performance motorcycles. Right. We've seen the continuing growth of the adventure motorcycle world in all capacities. A very strong and continuing interest not being bought, I think, because they're classic and heritage or history bikes. I think that the growth of the modern classic world is coming from people who are they're looking at those bikes as being very unintimidating, easy, beautiful objects that are that go with their lifestyle. And interesting, we've seen a lot more motorcyclists coming into motorcycling later in life. So you would be conversant with the idea of the born again motorcyclist who was a young rider who then came back in and rode later, started to buy motorcycles after they'd had a family maybe. But now what we're seeing is actually people who are coming into motorcycling in their 30s or 40s who've never had a bike before, are getting their license for the first time. So so this is exciting because I think the speculation maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago was about motorcycling becoming an aging thing. And this would be in some parts of the world. But in actual fact, we're seeing a lot of growth in younger customers and new riders who are slightly later in life. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is explosive, incredible growth and interest in what we would call growth markets like India, Brazil, China, where there's always been a massive culture of motorcycling. So motorcycling is not new in those markets, but what's new is an opportunity to play a part in those markets. So those would be the two things: changing dynamics, but also for Triumph and the opportunity to ride a Triumph, a real explosion in growth markets.
Right. And how do you feel Asia as a market?
Well, it goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about. I think we see this as an incredible growth market for Triumph. The relationship with Bajaj, the extension of our range from very high capacity motorcycles to capacity motorcycles that are much more accessible to more riders, more with middleweight capacity motorcycles, for India and other Asian markets. We are tentatively, excitedly looking to what we think is going to be quite explosive growth in the fan base for Triumph.
Right. How do we see Triumph in coming 5 years, Miles?
Well, I think based on the relationship with Bajaj and what I know of new motorcycles coming to market for new worlds and new categories, I would say that what I think you'll see from Triumph in coming years is more new great things and a greater opportunity for people to own and ride a Triumph.
Right.
Growth, in a word.
Exactly. My last question. What do you do in your leisure time?
Oh, you froze a little bit there. Go again, Akash, sorry.
I said, what do you do in your leisure time?
Aha. Well, I ride motorbikes.
Fantastic.
So my garage is a homage to motorcycles. My wardrobe is just nothing but motorcycle gear. My wife has long since got used to me planning my holidays around the Isle of Man, our weekends around Goodwood, and my work trips with holiday trips. So where we go places that we love or I think are fantastic, then we try and go back again. We do me and my wife do scooter holidays.
Right.
So maybe I shouldn't say that because I work for a motorcycle brand. But we if we get a spare weekend and we're lucky enough to have the time and a little bit of budget, we'll fly off to Rome and hire a scooter for 3 days or Spain. It's quite easy, or it's close enough to do a quick weekend trip away to get into France or Italy from the UK. So I spend my leisure time in motorcycles, and when I'm not doing that, I spend it walking my little Jack Russell, Elvis, who's my little boy.
Right. I think we are done with our question and answer. And thanks for your time, Miles. Thanks for taking out your time for us. It's
You're more
always
than welcome.
pleasure. It will be a pleasure to talk to you always. Uh,
No, you're more than welcome, and I invite you, Akesh, anytime we can get you or you find yourself in the UK, come to the factory, and I will give you the golden tour, the golden ticket.
Definitely, and I look forward you to come down to India in near future. All
Okie dokie.
right.
Lovely. All the best. All the best, everyone. Bye bye.